guys, welcome to my channel. Tonight I have this amazing guy, his little puppy dog face, with me. I'm gonna just dive in. If you've already watched part one, you already have my interpretation of the conversation, and now we're gonna get a man's perspective. So the very first thing that they talked about on the Deadass podcast was that he said that women make men commit or have to be monogamous. What is your take?
You know, I don't think it's that women make men be monogamous. I just think that there is more of a reason for women to verbalize that commitment because it's an unwritten rule for men already that, like, once we go together, you better not be with no other man. But I think there's a societal perspective that men don't necessarily have to respect that same boundary. So I think that women feel that they need to vocalize that so that they let the man know that I'm not the woman that's going to just let you be with who you want to be with. But I do think that both sexes agree that monogamy is ultimate because, you know, men aren't going to tolerate their woman, you know, going around having fun once they say you're my lady. You know what I mean? So
right. So you think it's no one side. It's not one-sided. It's equal-sided.
I think it's equal-sided. I just think it's more. I think it's just something that women express more. So like men take the stance of like, you're pressuring me because we feel like we don't even need to say it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, because I don't need to say it, maybe I feel like I don't need to hear it. You know, and not necessarily meaning that.
Well, you know that. So I feel like as a woman, my take is that a man generally shows the signs that he wants to be monogamous. Like he might, you know, make little comments, like little stuff like, whatever, I better be the only guy you talking to. Like, okay, he takes it seriously. Or introducing you to friends, taking you to more like bigger social gatherings, introducing you as maybe not his girlfriend, but as this my girl, or this is like whatever, like those like type of titles. But I think that for women, because men are so vague, it seems as if we are pressuring or forcing or the only ones bringing it up because we want it to be clear on the table what is going on. We don't want to just, because, you know, in every relationship, it's like that stigma of don't just assume you know what I'm thinking, ask me what I'm thinking.
Right.
So instead of just kind of assuming we're together and we're monogamous, I need to ask you so I know what it is. And I think, like she said on the podcast, it doesn't mean that I'm forcing you. It just means I'm saying to you, I either want to be monogamous or even beyond that. Because I think the second part of that conversation was when he said that she forced them to get married.
Well, I think right, but I think when I think even that was kind of like talking about the same thing. Like for her, marriage was the stability that for him forced monogamy. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, if you're dating, and, you know, obviously they started dating when they were much younger. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and because I didn't listen to the entire podcast.
Right.
Or
like
know,
you were supposed to.
Or know their entire background. Mm-hmm. You know, as you mentioned, he has had extramarital affairs. Because they've been together so long, you know, yes, it becomes one of those things where it's like, yes, I want to now reinforce the standard of what marriage is versus what dating is, because there's definitely a difference in expectation between partners when you go from dating to marriage. If there wasn't that difference, you wouldn't make that step. So I think, so just to tie that in real fast, I think once you agree, or once someone says, I want to get married, and then you in turn agree, because you ultimately could say, I don't want to get married. And I think that's what she was saying.
She was saying. She was saying,
it's like if you go to a restaurant with a dress code, it's like you either choose to dress appropriate.
This analogy sucks. I think that
I know, but it's the same thing. Like no one's like, they made me wear a suit. No, you chose to want to eat there, so you dressed appropriate for the dress code.
The next portion of like that conversation went from him saying, basically the stem of the question, if you forced me to be monogamous or forced me to marry you, then why is it that you don't want to do what it takes to be monogamous? Like, why is it that we don't have sex on a regular? Why is it that sex to you is a chore when you were the one who wanted to do this as long as we both shall live, basically?
Right, and I think...
Do you think, I guess my question is, like, that's a lot of pressure. Like, well, because it's not like, it's basically saying, you wanted to be monogamous with me, so now you have to live up to my expectation in this marriage. Not we have to determine our own expectation in this marriage, and we have to live up to that.
Right, and I do, and I think that that can come off as a little bit selfish. I mean, I know, it doesn't necessarily mean that, like, it doesn't have to be a chore.
But don't you think in the beginning of every marriage, and I feel like we had, not like necessarily, it wasn't about sex, but in the beginning, there were a lot of compromises that I feel like or sacrifices I was trying to make you happy. Like, for instance, when we were first married, Corey would say, when I come home from work, you don't even ask me how my day was. So as a wife or as a person, a partner, I took that as, okay, make sure when he comes home you ask him how his day was. Wait. So I think when you first get married or you first introduce like an issue in your marriage, whether it be sex, whether it be anything, when that person starts to kind of give you what you're asking for, automatically you take it as it's pity this. Like, so pity sex, a chore sex, because that person is compromising something that they technically might not be wanting to do, but they're doing it in spite of,
right,
which might not always look and feel like something that they want to you, but as the person on the giving end, they just want to please you. So
right,
and that's, I feel like that's the difference between men and women. Like, so because she's doing it because she knows that's what he wants, it now becomes this whole stigma of chore sex. But when at the same time,
and I think also too, I think just kind of one of the things I realized is just that we take so much of what we say to each other so literal, and we hone in just on that thing opposed to like the bigger picture. Because like I thought about it, like when we were talking about like the how's your day thing. It's like, yeah, I want you to ask how my day is, but not just how was your day, because that's the question I want you to ask. I want you to engage me about my day and take a genuine interest in my day. The same way as now you're home with the kids more often, it's important for me to realize that I need to engage you about your day because your day is encapsulated in this house. So it's like...
Right. So, but don't you think that initially when anybody is taking on a role of doing something that is like not necessarily what they have planned to do, or that they don't naturally think to do, the way that they do it to start out the process is very robotic. It is
I agree with that.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't just like...
And that is a natural phase of that process. But so many times that you've like said that you want me to do something, like just because you did that doesn't mean X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, if it doesn't accomplish the goal that I thought it was going to accomplish, then I'm not doing it no more. Like, so when you say like, how was your day? And I'm like, you're only asking because I wanted you, because I told you to ask. It's like, then I'm not asking you again because.
Right. So, okay. So then let's tackle the part about the sex, because I feel like all of that, the everything, the conversation leading up to it was fine. But me personally, I feel like she did women an injustice by not actually, like, she just took the road of, yeah, my sex drive is just diminished since we had kids, and that's it. Like, though, that's your excuse. Take that part out. If we didn't have kids, even if you were married and you didn't have kids, I still think your sex life suffers, because you become so accustomed to the person that, like, it's like this, it's just like, I know Corey's watching the game, just so you guys know. He when his eyes are looking up, he's watching the television.
I'm looking at the green dot on I'm looking at the green dot on the camera.
No, you're not. So anyway, my point being is that if you see somebody every day, it's like my mom used to say this all the time. If you have something like a vision, write it, put it down, and look at it every day, right? Pray for it every day. But if you keep looking at the same thing on your mirror for 40 days, you're not even going to notice it on your mirror come that long. It's just like when you're driving to work, like, you don't always remember that you drove there. You just kind of get there and it's like, oh shoot, I'm already here. Because it's become so routine. And I think that when you're spending forever with somebody, the everyday moments become just so routine that you get out of the habit of, like,
it turns into a blur. You know?
Yeah. So then sex turns into something that you feel like if we don't do it tonight, we have forever to do it. And I know that's not great. It's not good when you say it out loud, but I think that that's factual, and that's the reason.
And I don't disagree with that sentiment either. And I think, all right, so there's a couple other things, but like, I don't disagree with the fact that, like, yes, you have forever to do it. I just think that, like, when you engage somebody at 2:00 in the afternoon and send them winky eyes and
he's talking about me.
Yeah. It's like, so again, as a guy, once your woman says, like, we're scheduled, we're in there, listen, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, just keep your heels on, and like yeah, I'm gonna keep my heels on, and then you come upstairs and it's like, why you got your scarf on? It's like, well, I was about to watch. Don't you want to watch this show? Like, wake me up in the morning, and it's like, but you're supposed to have your heels on. It's like, once you tell me these things are going to happen, because as you already kind of alluded to, guys are already just ready to go. It's like, you've built me up to let me down, and that's
okay. So
I don't even care about the schedule, but just don't tell me it's going to happen today, and then it just not happen today.
Here's a perfect example. Whenever we go on dates,
right,
I think both of us mentally assume tonight we're gonna have sex.
And we do a good job of it.
No, I'm not saying we don't. But I'm saying when we go out, it's that expectation of when we come home, we end it with sex. Now,
I still believe paying for dinner should get me sex. Yes, even after being married. Yes.
No, but listen, I'm saying that. But there are times that we come home, go to dinner, and we don't have sex, right? And it's like, that is the same sort of situation. It's not scheduled, like, we didn't text and say it's scheduled, but when you said let's go to dinner tonight, mentally we both have scheduled it.
Right.
And if we come home, we've had a long day, we've been out all night, maybe we didn't even have the best night out, and we go our separate ways and we go to sleep. To me, it's like, that happens and it's gonna happen a lot. I don't, but so my point being is that, like, to me, those issues are normal. I think that would be normal even if we weren't married and we were just being regular. I think the unnormal part is when she was saying on the podcast, you didn't listen to the whole thing, but when she was saying on the podcast that her sex drive is diminished. Me personally, even if we went 3 weeks without having sex, it wouldn't be because my sex drive is diminished. I probably still want to have sex so many times out of the week. It's just that either the schedule doesn't permit it, time didn't happen, you fell asleep on the couch, I'm watching a movie. Like, anything could happen, but it doesn't have to do with,
I agree with that,
me not wanting to have the sex.
So let me ask you this, and it's something that they do, where obviously they do it in a very, variable states. Like, obviously, like you said, every time they schedule sex with, you said 3 times a week. Like, so we used to try to schedule Mondays, and I feel like all it did was just create more pressure, because it was like Mondays only worked out a handful of times, if any.
Well,
and then it just made it seem like we were both letting each other down. So, like, the schedule part doesn't make sense now.
Let me tell you the real reason behind why women have less sex when they're married.
That's fair.
So what I think the reason is that what happens is you are in a relationship with somebody for a long period of time. Your level of what turns you on, I don't want to say attraction, but what turns you on changes, because as people we are constantly evolving. So what turned me on in the beginning was just pure lust. That's what turns everybody on when they first meet somebody, just lust in general. Now that I know you inside and out, we spend every day together, we've been married for almost 4 years, the lust of that whole thing has worn off. You know what I mean? It's not as if I don't look at you and still get turned on, like you're not attractive, but the lust that's not really there anymore. For a woman. For a man, of course, because you're more physically driven. Mm-hmm. But for a woman, it's not there. What I now am attracted to is your mental, your emotional side. Like, those things, the vulnerability in our marriage is now what I'm more turned on by. So she made a statement at the end of the podcast, right? And one of the tips was men helping out around the house. So I think that's a cop-out. He even said he thought he would never do that because he doesn't think that would equate to more sex. He feels like he would wash the dishes one night, she would probably maybe bare minimum be like, oh yeah, that's good, let me give him some. But that would probably only happen once. The more and more he washes, it's not going to continue to happen. The reason why that's not going to continue to happen is because once you continue to do it, it loses its value. So with everything in every relationship, once it's been done 1,000 times, it loses its all. Naturally, with natural progression, the turn on factor is the thing. And I think the same in your marriage, where you have to constantly be learning each other. You have to constantly be finding new ways to entice your partner to make them want to be intimate with you.
And I don't disagree with that. I don't.
So like,
but there's also, but again, there's that, but there's also getting caught up in daily life where it's just, and we all do it, where it's just like, I've been busy doing this and I really don't have enough time to dedicate to just like catering to your tiny little specific need. I guess as a man, I'm glad I don't have.
But this is where, so that's my point though. You're making my point. She's equating attraction and a turn on to a task. I'm not equating attraction and turn on to a task. So what attracts me doesn't have to be you cook dinner, you clean the diaper.
But you said it changes all the time. So it
changes all the time. So what I'm saying is this: if if what would be attractive to me, or what something where I'm like lacking something and you fill that void, say it is help around the house. It doesn't have to be that you're washing the dishes. The more attractive role is like, you know what, babe, you do a lot around the house. I'm gonna send you to X, Y, and Z for the day. You get to take the day off. I'm gonna hire somebody to come in and you can take a spa day. That's the romantic gesture that goes along with I've been busy. Do you see what I'm saying? And not the act of taking out the trash. Because as a woman too, we also equate things like that to that's what you should be doing. So it doesn't. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you do, but I'm saying that's the part of that podcast that, for the lack of a better word, pissed me off about it, because I felt like she made it. She didn't do enough to explain to the man, hey, it's not the wash the dishes that I'm looking for. And most women put that. That's like the common thread that's on Instagram. You want to have sex tonight? Wash the dishes. Put the kids to bed. That's not what I want. You want to have sex tonight? Okay, you know I've been home with the kids all day. Let me take a day off. Send me away to do X, Y, and Z. And then I would probably feel like, okay. I agree that that is the struggle. I don't think that time will ever change, because I think ultimately in most situations in a marriage, the most of the problem stems from, like, if it's communication, it's because you don't have the time to communicate. Because, like, for instance, most couples, they don't talk because the guy wants to watch TV. He don't have time to listen to her talk because he wants to watch TV, or he don't want to talk because it's taking up too much time and she's gonna be talking forever. Time. You know what I mean? When it comes to having sex, you can't have sex because the kids are running around like crazy people. You gotta give a kid a bath. You gotta make dinner. There's just no time. By the time you lay down to have sex, it's 11 o'clock at night. And then you say to yourself, I'm 36 years old, right. I gotta go to bed. So then it's just there's no time for intimacy. There's barely any time to take a vacation by yourself. There's barely any time to, the time as far as like other relationship problems or marriage problems is money. And you make a lot of money, but you don't have the time to enjoy it. Every problem equates with time. They all go together with time. So I feel like I understand that time is a problem, but that's a reoccurring problem you're going to have in every situation. So at some point you just have to deal with the time.
No, I get that. And I don't think it's necessarily just a lack of time. I think a lot of it also has to do with timing. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
Like, where, like, because you will stay up a little bit later than I will, sometimes you'll tap me, late at night, and I'll kind of brush you off. Or whereas I'm more likely to tap you early in the morning where you want nothing to do with it, and it's just like, right, that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So we miss, we miss each other like that
true.
Too.
So I also feel like that's another thing that I feel like nobody's ever really addresses, is that, like, the frequency of your sex, like, and I mean like being on that same wave. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we are total polar opposites. It's like, I'll be like, okay, let's have sex.
Like, Erica loves being in the middle of the night. I'm super early in the morning.
So
she hates early.
I don't like early in the morning.
I hate late at night.
First of all, nobody want to have early in the morning sex.
So we pretended like we were going to do afternoon at one point.
Afternoon is when you got 3 kids. That's dumb. It's not even worth even considering. Never worked out. So I just feel like if there was some takeaways, or I guess, what would you say would be your top 3 suggestions for having a better sex life in marriage? And I'll give my top 3.
Being open and honest about it every time you have the urge. Maybe not necessarily the urge, but when you feel it's necessary, opposed to just waiting until you don't feel like waiting anymore and then being upset about it. I think, like, I do that a lot, or like maybe you do that sometimes, where like we want to be respectful of the other person, so we're like, I'm not going to press the issue, and then it's like you end up kind of hurting yourself in the long run, because it's like, damn, I'm biting my tongue, I'm not getting these needs fulfilled, and then it turns into an argument when it could have been a conversation.
Tip 2, chatterbox. What's tip 2?
Give in to your partner, and again, I don't want to pretend like you're the only person that like turns down sex. Like there's plenty of time.
Oh yeah, there was a phase of turning down me. There was a phase.
Anyway.
So my tips, because you're just gonna keep going. So I feel like, contrary to popular belief, you have to just go with the flow.
So I'm saying that.
I think that when you start to overanalyze the amount of sex you're having, the more you start to even realize the less amount of sex you're having. I feel like we've been married for 4 years, okay? There have been times that we have gone a month without having sex. Mm-hmm. So, but to me, it doesn't necessarily feel like a month. Well, let's just say we've gone a month without having sex. Let's just put it that way. Because we've had forms of sex, but we probably have gone a month without having sex. So what I feel like, but you don't know if intimacy is so funny, because intimacy is so many different things. Even though we're not penetrating each other. You're not penetrating. Pause. Yes, that was so inappropriate. I apologize. If he's not penetrating me doesn't mean that so sorry. Doesn't mean that we aren't being intimate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I think sometimes you just have to go with the flow and stop always counting down the days between the sex. I also think that a lot of it is, I do think that it's okay. I'm not opposed to people saying that they schedule sex. I'm not opposed to all of that stuff. I think you gotta do what you gotta do. But I do think it's a lot easier to have sex the less you talk about having sex. Like, I think like when he comes home and he says, I want to have sex tonight, that's not attractive. But if he came home, we got into bed together, maybe we were watching TV, and he touched me and I knew that he wanted to have sex, it's just different.
It's still, listen, it's still the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing going on. Think about like where we are in our lives and like how we position our family with our kids, our work, our other entrepreneurial things. We have very, very, very busy schedules between the two of us. Like, and I think ultimately, like, and I think you said this in the very beginning, like, sex is important, but like, ultimately, that's not the linchpin to your marriage, and it shouldn't be. It should be important, and it should be a factor, like you always said, and like I agree with. No one ever wants to marry bad sex like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? That
I'm a good Christian girl, but you better try it out before you buy it.
All right, so
don't tell my mother I said that.
So you just don't marry bad. You just don't marry bad sex. So in that respect, it's like, okay, and I think we're both confident in that regard, that like we both know that we are, physically attracted to each other. But I think because we're so busy in each other, in our personal lives, but we're also so supportive of each other, whether it seems like it or not, like I'm extremely supportive of everything Erica does, and she superficially gives me a hard time about working a lot, but knows that it's important for our family. And those are the things that I think for our relationship actually trump our sex life and still give us, because we both believe in each other. You know what I'm saying?
But my point being, that in itself is a form of intimacy. So that's what I'm saying. Because
I'm turned, like when you tell me about having great days at work, I'm like that's where I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, that turns me on, because it's like, yo, like that's, because I know you're proud of it, and it's like, right, so like
that's what I'm saying. You have to take sex as the physical part and look at intimacy in a whole different light
Right.
when you're married. When you're married, because when you're dating, the sex is the thing that drives your relationship a lot of times. Like, that's like the glue that holds it together for most people. So when you're married, that can't be it, because there's so much time you're together, you spend together. So it has to be intimacy in your conversation. There has to be intimacy in the things you do when you're just like hanging out. There has to be, and then you have to think about things that will help you lead into having sex. Like, one thing when me and Corey first started dating, I used to always tell him, like, when we're together or when we're around each other, just always be touching me. Like, I just, like, he'll, like, it'll be something small, like rub his hand like this on my leg, or just kind of like touch my arm. Like, we always are being, in some way, some shape or form, some form of touch, some form of
Nowadays,
intimacy.
my hands are too hot.
Whatever, but either way, we're still driving that level of intimacy, and it might not convert to sex that night, but it's still a small amount of intimacy that we share on a daily basis. Laying on the couch, sitting together, watching TV together, me being in his arms, stuff like that. When we go out places, we hold hands, we kiss, we're affectionate. Like, all of those things might not equate to sex, but or end up with you guys having sex together at night. I don't know my choice words, man. But it might not mean you're gonna have sex that night. But it does open up more intimacy that makes you not so focused on the actual physical part of having sex. And then women, listen, at the end of the day, men are men. They're going to need something. So you know what I'm saying. You just gotta do what you gotta do sometimes to do what you gotta do sometimes. That's the way I look at it.
That was a lot of nothing, but okay.
You know what, y'all. Everybody knows.
I know what you meant, but that was a lot of nothing.
Because at the end of the day, like, you want to keep your man at home. Let's not be foolish, okay? You want to keep your man at home. So in order to keep your man at home, you do have to put that into perspective. You can't just go one whole month without any form of intimacy. There has to be something there. So
again, we just fall into the trap of life, you know what I mean? And
you have to, but in the same regard, you have to make room for those moments, because I feel like in the last 6 months, 7, 8 months, we've been in a pandemic, right? So granted, so intimacy looks so much different. It looks so much different because, let's be realistic, you in the house with your spouse. I'm not. My husband Corey has been back at work for a very long time. But most people are in the house together. And if anything about a marriage that I know, if you're in the house with your partner for that long, all day.
We were in the house together for 3 months.
With
so
a little. And I thought that was the moment that I was going to trap Corey. But let me tell you, sex game was so low during that time. Because he was getting on my nerves and I was getting on his nerves.
Facts.
So it's like there's going to be...
Took record number naps.
There's going to be high moments of... Or not just say, there's going to be moments of gaps. That's normal. It's because, again, remember, time. You are going to be with this person forever. It would be insane to think, even at your job, you get a 2-week paid vacation. You're going to get a 2-week paid vacation in your marriage every year.
And, you know, and not that it's like, you know, like, just to average out, like, for the year, like, we used to average 2 trips a year. On vacation, you know, just the two of us, we all, you know.
Sex is a priority.
Right, and
high priority.
And there's
real
no
sex.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And there's no kids to worry about.
Scream if you need to.
Oh my God. No, stop. Not you need to. You need to. Not. I don't like the way you're talking. Anyway,
I'm saying. But yes,
and we have a trip coming up next month, so.
And sex is a priority.
We'll be
in the woods, so screaming is a priority. I'm just saying, it's a priority for me. Well, I guess on that note, I close it out. Guess we're done.
I mean,
well, if you thought this was a good episode, then please like, share, comment, subscribe, and maybe Corey will be back more often. Let's not hold our breaths, guys. Remember that podcast he did with me. See how that turned out.